My like really early is like a minute early than what I would like to be starting at, so what have you. Anyway, here I go again. For those of you just tuning in, I am currently reading a manuscript. I'm on my second manuscript right now. This one is called The Sword and the Rose, and tonight I'll be reading chapter 12. So, without further ado, I'm just going to launch right into it. Chapter 12. Marquian Darharelevant returned victorious a few weeks later, his jubilation only slightly tinged by the fact that the victory was won on behalf of Gwalsor Dar Randolph. Gwalsor gave a victory banquet for him, complete with Darharelevant's banner being carried thrice around the banqueting hall. His own joy tempered by knowing that he was celebrating the man who had tried at least once to kill him. Gwalsor had at least one consolation, however. Haywen was seated next to her brother's right, 2 places down from the Baron himself, making it difficult for her to converse with him. Brinian Mar Patvin was seated next to Gwalsor, and the two of them spoke from time to time. "And how is your son, lady?" "Well and fit, what I see of him. He seems to thrive as a page." "He does indeed. He is quick to learn, and seldom needs to learn the same lesson twice." "You miss him?" "Of course, and I suppose that every mother regrets seeing her son grow up to leave home." On impulse, he asked, "Would you like him to live at home with you?" "Oh, no, he would never have that. Do you know it? It was he who insisted to me that he be allowed to live as the other pages lived. And of course it was hard on him, for they all mocked him because he had to stay with his mother." Gwalsor nodded. "I feared as much, but there seemed little I could do about the harassment. Had I commanded the other pages to let him be, they would merely have managed to find sly and secret ways to make his life miserable." "Yes, and I could see that the only thing to do was to let him live as the rest, and soon enough he would find his place and his own friends, and the bedevilment would lessen. I hope he does make time to see you in his free time." "He does," she sighed, "and I try not to make matters difficult for him by clinging to him and insisting that he always come see me." She smiled at him. "You wait, my lord, until you have children of your own. You cannot know how a mother feels. Even a father, or most fathers, feel something about the children they see growing up and finally leaving home. And it seems that it is too much too soon, and the child is not ready for the world. And yet, you are right. I do not yet know that feeling myself, but I can see it in you, and I can sympathize." She looked at him long and hard, then said, "Yes, you are capable of that, are you not? Thank you." At that moment, a troop of entertainers were making their entrance, and the people at the tables let out a cheer. It was no longer possible to hold any sort of conversation. The entertainers were all in bright colors, and were many sorts. First to come were the tumblers, who rolled and bounded across the floor, who leapt upon each other's shoulders to form a human tower, and bounded back down onto the floor again. And there were jugglers who strolled back and forth, tossing balls, cups, sticks, and the like into the air, and some of the better ones were able to handle 3, 4, or more objects at a time. A wizened old fellow began to blow a wooden flute, and the tumblers began to move in time with the bright tune, leaping into their balancing acts, leaping away, doing a few dance steps in between. At the end of the evening, a harper came on, singing an eminently forgettable song about the great victory which Marquis de Harelevant had won, and almost single-handedly against the massed forces of Baron Wardick. Gwalsor managed not to flinch at the description of Marquian as too noble to strike at a fallen foe, but rather waiting until the man had recovered his weapon before slaying him with a dread stroke of his mighty sword. Finally, the harper had thrice victory Marquian coming back triumphantly to his baron, carrying the heads of his enemies. A custom which had died out several centuries or more. It was at this point that Brynn leaned over and whispered quietly to Gwalsor, "Look at Marquian's face." Marquian's face was indeed an interesting spectacle. He had certainly won a victory, not so complete and all-encompassing as the Harper had suggested, but a victory. And now he was being reminded once more on whose behalf that victory had been won. He ended up scowling at his wine cup. Gwalsor stood, raised his wine glass, and said for all to hear, "Lords and ladies, I drink to Lord Marquian and his victory." Marquian glared at him, expecting to see some mockery, but Gwalsor was quite serious. The Harper might have inflated the numbers involved and the completeness of the destruction wrought, but the battle meant that at the very least Warwick was not likely to attack again this year. The gathered people responded, "Lord Marquian and his victory!" Marquian blushed, then stood himself and raised a cup. "To the health of our baron!" It was only the polite thing for him to have done, and he showed little or no sign that he wished anything but health to Gwalsor. Gwalsor, however, was not deceived. There were many more toasts drank before the assembled company. Some, much the worse for wear, departed to their various beds. Vereter Hanarulland was on trial again. This time the charge was murder. Malgathop had found 2 people who were willing to swear that Vereter had whipped up a band of people to burn out and destroy the hedge wizard Valwant. The chief priest did not attempt to interfere before the trial this time. Priestly intrusion in the trial was limited to a number of priests, though not the chief priest, appearing as witnesses on behalf of the accused. The accused, however, did not cooperate in efforts to mitigate his sentence. He stood up and proclaimed to the court and all those assembled that he had led the attack on Valwant. "Yes, it was I who led the attack on the foul offender of the gods. Yes, we slew him. We burned his filthy shack around him." He leaned forward and staring at the court, barely controlled anger visible in his face. "We slew him, and I would do the same again and again for the sake of the people." Do you not understand that at the same time the gods will weary of men trespassing on godly prerogatives and have their vengeance on us? Wake up, all of you! "This is not the place for a sermon," Gwalsor cut in. "There are certain defenses recognized in law for the taking of a life. None of what you have said today so far constitutes any of these defenses. Have you anything further to say?" "The gods! Men come before justice from time to time, claiming that one or other of the gods came to them and commanded that they do such and such a thing. Seldom, if ever, has it been shown to be true. Which of the gods told you to slay Valwant?" "All of them! They declare him guilty." "Did they come to you in a vision or in a dream while you were sleeping?" "Neither. It was not necessary. I know where my duty lies." "I see. And why were you to slay Valwant?" "The man practiced divinations, and such are an infringement on the rights of the gods." "And did he do one on your behalf, that you knew this for sure?" "Of course not. I knew it was common knowledge." "But common knowledge is not enough to convict a man by law. How, then, did you come to this reasoning that something which is a marketplace rumor was indeed a fact?" "Several people said so. That was sufficient for me." "And did you seek out the people who had divinations cast for them? Surely they were as guilty as Valwant, and what punishment could they expect?" "No, I did not seek them out. There were hints and suggestions, but no certain evidence. Besides, the magician could always have turned them away. He had no need to practice divinations for them." "But yet you had no better evidence against him than you had against the people who might have called on him for these services. How could punishment, and such harsh punishment, be right in one case and not in the other?" "Because the gods." "So you say. Yet it always goes round in a circle. The gods told you to slay this man because he practiced divinations, and you knew he practiced divinations because people said that he had done so for someone else. Yet you could not or would not seek out the persons who could have told you for certain that it was true. And in any case, the law does not recognize your defense for taking another's life. Have you anything further to say? The gods will not let such abominations go unpunished. In their own time they will. That is not a defense. Have you anything to say in your own defense? Only that I obey the will of the gods. I see. And then I have no alternative but to sentence you to be hanged on the 3rd day from today. Guards, remove the prisoner. The prisoner let himself be led away without protest, intent on showing the gods that he was willing to die on their behalf. Worse for Gwalsor, there were expressions on the faces of some people who had watched the trial and were clearly uneasy at the whole matter. The high priest did not attempt to bully Gwalsor this time. In fact, he was somewhat dispirited. My lord Baron, will you indeed hang this priest? He is not truly a bad man, only somewhat misguided. Misguided? Master Priest, you were present. You heard him as well as I did myself. Not only did he lead to the killing of Valwant, he announced his intention to kill again and again, so often as he thought necessary. How would you prevent him? My lord, measures could be taken. My lord. You could make him a prisoner in one of the temples? Your pardon, Master Priest, but I doubt you have the facilities for such a thing, for any long term. And if he escapes, hating both you and me, what might we be facing then? Better let matters take their present course. The high priest left, still unhappy. Gwalsor did not enjoy hangings, though from the look of the people around the gibbet, there were many who did. And while he did not enjoy them, he recognized that there were occasions when hanging was the only solution. Vereter Hanarella was led forth to the gibbet, not goblet. That's a me, not a typo. With cheers and jeers from the crowd. Do they cheer the man in his deeds, or merely for the fact that he provides their morning's entertainment? Under ordinary circumstances, a man to be hanged would be permitted to speak a few last words. Gwalsor had had inquiries made, and was satisfied that any last words from the Vereter would merely be attempts to whip up the crowd to go out and seek diviners and put them to death. Gwalsor therefore felt justified in merely having the crime and the sentence read and the execution carried out. The crowd, robbed of a part of their entertainment, gave their voice to disapproval. So long as they only use words, that is all well and good. Gwalsor rubbed his leather cuff. And we have guards at hand, said Forraith, to be called in the first time anyone tries to pull up a cobblestone. Gwalsor only nodded. He knew about the precautions taken by the marshal, but also knew that Forraith was speaking to reassure himself as much as anything. After a bit of shouting, however, the crowd began to leave, and finally all that was left was a lonely figure hanging on the gibbet, and the guards posted about it. Gwalsor sighed. And now we, too, can be about our business. Saldra's tears. If this is the last such cause I must deal with, I will be just as happy. But he knew very well that this would not be the last such case for him. He wished there was someone he could share his troubles with. Haywen Mar Herelevant had gone home with her brother, and he knew very well what her sentiments would have been. She would have commiserated with him on having to attend such a dolorous duty, but her words would have been more empty sounds. She would have had a very good reason for not attending the hanging herself, but the real reason would be that such circumstances were not conducive to romance. On an impulse, he said to Ralno, "If there is a business which will not wait, make a decision, use my seal, and tell me later." "Where will you be, my lord?" "Out riding, and I have no idea when I will return. Be rest assured, though, that I will return." He left Jadal holding his horse in the courtyard, 4 guards remaining there, with the other 2 accompanying him, strode through the halls to a certain door, and rapped on it. One of Brennan's maids opened it. "My Lord Baron, how may I serve you?" Gwalsor suppressed his impatience. I wish to speak to your mistress, please, if it is inconvenient." The servant recovered herself by now. "Please, step inside, my Lord Baron, while I speak to my Lady Brennan." He turned to his 2 guards. "Wait here. I doubt if I can come to serious harm inside." The anteroom was sparsely furnished, but showed some feminine touches. One of the wall hangings was from an old legend, but rather a scene of war and battle. But rather than a scene of war and battle, it showed Delinen feeding the birds. There was a basin for washing on a wood stand, but the basin had been chosen for its pleasing shape as well as purpose. Then suddenly Brynjan was at the door, worry on her face. "My lord? Has something happened to Jadal?" He was instantly sorry for his haste. "No, my lady. Jadal is downstairs holding the horses, as fit as ever. I am sorry. I ought to have sent a more complete message. Since of course your son would be your first concern. But I have been too full of my own woes and troubles. I had best come another time. Farewell, lady." He was just turning when she said, "Stay, please. I can at least be polite. What had you to say to me?" "Lady, it has been a bad morning, and I would forget my troubles for a time. I came by to ask if you would do a favor of riding with me." By now he was quite prepared for her to simply refuse, or to put him off with an excuse of some sort. Every stone of this great castle pressed down on his shoulders. After a moment's pause, she said, "Go downstairs and have Jadal get my grey saddled. I'll be down as soon as possible." He stood still for a moment, surprised at the unexpected answer. He felt a smile break out. "Yes, my lady, and my thanks." It was only the presence of his 2 guards that kept him from running down the steps of the castle like a page. Outside he gave brisk orders to Jadal. Go down to the stables and saddle Lady Brennan's grey horse. See how quick you can be." "My mother?" "Yes, my Lord Baron." He was off at a run. Jadal returned very quickly, and Brynjan, shortly after that, came stepping briskly into the courtyard in her riding dress. Gwalsor, judging from how long it took any woman in his previous experience to prepare for any event, was pleasantly surprised. They rode in silence out of the castle and down through the town. When they had gotten beyond the town, Brynjan broke the silence. "A troublesome morning, my Lord Baron?" "A troublesome morning. I had to witness a hanging." "Ah, yes, the young priest." Yes, indeed. And I would have been content to have commuted the sentence to banishment or some such, but he continued to say, even waiting for his execution, that he was glad to have done what he had done. And he would do the same again, whenever the circumstances seemed to warrant it. That being the case, I had little choice. She nodded. "Indeed, what else could you do, save send him out to repeat his crimes in some other jurisdiction?" "Yes, even the chief priest did no more than make a nominal protest. You may have heard I am not greatly loved by the priesthood these days." "So I heard. But then, the chief priest did none of his thunders and lightnings over me this time. I suspect he recognizes I had little choice in the matter. Besides that, one of the priests has been shown to be little more than a madman bent on killing. Even so, I suspect Master Redrobe will use the matter against me if an opportunity arises, rehabilitating the dead Veritor as a hero of the faith." "Do you feel so badly for every hanging?" "Not usually so, though no hanging is a joyous occasion for me." "How is it that this one has been so hard?" He thought for a moment. "I think it was because it was so futile. I was pressed into doing it by the priest himself. The chief priest hardly argued at all, and yet when the time comes, he will bring the man back to haunt me. Perhaps then, rather than fretting yourself over how badly you feel, you ought to be considering what you might do when that time comes. He looked at her in surprise. Much the sort of advice Melga would have given me, without the Lafetta accent. Where is he, that he is not able to give you this advice himself? Oh, he muttered to me this morning that it would be better for both of us if he wandered around a bit, staying a bit out of sight and listening to what he might be said. He will appear at my shoulder very shortly. I need hardly say, though, that I prefer your company to his. She smiled at that. That at least is pleasant to hear. And he was able to smile a little in return. You mean the tales of some sort of dark relationship between me and Malga? I'd heard there were rumors, of course, and such rumors seem to move on in the wind. No, the truth is that my father set him to watch over me when I came to take over the barony. Father was certain that I would need a strong right arm in the circumstances, and he was right, of course. But Mulgathep seems somewhat ruthless, does he not? Oh, there's no doubt at all about his ruthlessness. Most times, though, he'll consult me before doing anything drastic. Most times? He knows as a man in his place must, when immediate action must be taken to prevent something worse happening. But I know him, and I can trust him not to abuse his authority. Whatever he does as on my command. You see, so it is not as though I am turning a monster loose with an intent of saying, after the monster has gone roaring through and slaying and destroying, none of the blame is mine, for he did it. He spread his arms in a gesture of denial. She looked at him. You would take the blame, wouldn't you? Gwalsar shrugged. He's my man. He follows my orders. The blame is mine. You trust him very much, then? I've known him all my life. He's my teacher in many things. And companion? Oh, yes, that as well, and many times I've been right glad of it. So many people think they may gain something by making up to the Baron's son, even the younger son. And what of the wife of the Baron's brother? She asked, clearly thinking serious thoughts of her own. Or indeed the mother of his heir? Your coming has had one benefit, my lord, and it has driven away most of those who would make up to me, but always with some hint of calculation behind their eyes. Always? I could hardly believe that, my lady. She laughed. Oh, so Gwalsar the Grim has a lighter side to him, does he? Ha! Gwalsar the Grim is most assiduously avoiding his duties this afternoon. Is that what indeed they call me? She colored. On occasions, yes. And on other occasions, less complimentary epithets, I assume? But he was smiling as freely as well. My Lord Baron, if you hope to make me repeat every ill thing anyone says of you, you're much mistaken. Her tone was severe, but her eyes danced. What would you make half your population What? Would you make half your population serve you as pages? The conversation continued in a bantering tone, and Gwalsar eventually returned to the castle in a much better humor than when he had set out. Okay, and that is the end of that chapter. It was a little weirder, more awkward. But thanks everyone who tuned in, and yeah, I will talk to you tomorrow. Have a good night, guys.